Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode featuring just myself. My name is Brad, otherwise known as Bradsford, and Teddy. Teddy, hi.
Heyo.
What
How's
show
it
is
going?
this?
How's it going? We just can't stop snapping.
Oh my God, we really can't. And especially considering today's new patch, no one can. So,
No.
hi again. My name is Brad. This is Teddy. We are the new host here on Can't Stop Snapping. Michael will be back, of course, as a guest in future episodes. And of course, you already saw the announcement. If you did, if you didn't, basically life, kind of dealing with that. I believe he said he has a new kid on the way. And a new job as well. So he's trying to juggle all these things at once. And he wanted to keep the show going and hand it off to some people that really cared about the show. We've been on the show quite a few times between the two of us, both together and separately. So it just kind of made sense to take the reins. But I'm excited.
So excited.
I
Best
love
wishes
talking.
to Blue and what he started here, and we'll try and honor what the show has been built on.
Of course.
Yeah.
The big news today, of course, is the patch. And we will get into the OTA from last week, and we'll talk about Silk as well. But I do want to just start with the elephant in the room, or I guess the Galactus in the room, so to speak. It is the big nerf to the big bad himself, as well as some changes that could be considered buffs for both Maria Hill and Dazzler. So, Teddy, when it comes to Galactus, what do they do? What do they change? What does he look like now?
They put him in the ground is what they did, Brad. So he's upped in terms of power. He's now a 6/7 stat line, but he has a new text box. The text box says that he has to be winning his lane in conjunction with being the only card at that lane for him to be able to trigger. It makes it so much less consistent for him to be able to activate. It means that every single deck has the capability of countering him now, as long as you have the read on where the Galactus is going. You don't have to have that control card, that unique control card that was then going to put a card on his side of the board. You were just able to match him in terms of power to be able to get the win. It also brings him into a much more healthy state in terms of looking at future balance changes, because they built themselves into a corner. Actually, decreasing the power of the old Galactus made him better, because then he lost initiative and could dodge control cards and play his own control cards without any kind of fear. Now, with the 7 power stat line, his success is directly tied to his power, and it's a lot harder to play. It's a lot harder to play. I was trying.
Yeah.
I gave it, I think, a fair shake. I think that there still can be adaptations. Have you played him at all with the new state?
I have a little bit, and I haven't gotten a chance to play around with this build that's been kind of rattling in my brain a little bit, because I want to try a few different variations. I tried the classic one that I played the most, right? The one that I got to Infinite this season prior to the nerf was, it featured Jeff and Iron Lad in it.
Nice.
That was a blast to play. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I loved getting down Iron Lads, even to high roll the Galactus early, or even like high roll into like Wave or Electro to ramp into your Galactus when you don't have them in hand, stuff like that. Even hitting Jeff with like that was awesome, right? Because you can just move your
spicy
4/6.
flexibility. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's the list that I was trying after the change, and honestly, there is a noticeable difference, of course, with the power change, because it gives people the means of countering it on a separate axis as opposed to just the solo lane aspect. But now you have the flexibility of like, okay, do I have a way to like Polaris or thing over? Do I have a way to do like whatever, like the old Galactus? But of course, you can just simply go, I'm going to play Maximus on this lane, tie, and then that's fine. That kind of thing. But I am interested in a couple of other builds. The first one is the obvious kind of, I want to say classic, but more so like that Nimrod Goblin type of build, where you can go into like Green Goblin, Hobgoblin, or you can do Nimrod, Wolverine, and just kind of like pivot to which game plan you want to go with.
Right.
And then just try to win on turn 6. And the other one is of a similar note, but it's buffing Galactus himself.
You're gonna do the Shuri?
So I don't know if the Shuri one would work. Like, could you?
Does the ordering not actually work with? I heard people in chat spouting off about like Shuri Iron Fist, but does the Shuri, like the location you have to? If Shuri moves the location, do you still have to play to her, or do you have to play to the location she got played to?
The location she got played to. So
it would work.
It would work in the Iron Fist sense. That one's interesting. I think that one's a bit more memey because it's a little harder to kind of get going.
Yeah, I'm kind of dismissing that one.
I was thinking something as simple as like even like Forge or like Nakia, I suppose, Okoye, another kind of way to buff stuff. I do think that if you go into the Nimrod Goblin stuff, if you do the Goblin stuff in general, I think you have to go away from Null because it's oftentimes that little bit of power I've already noticed that you lose, 8 power or even 3 power in some instances, because I've had situations where I had to pivot. I start trying to goblin them on one side, and then they Polaris something immediately on that side and makes it so I can't Galactus there, and I have to pivot to a different lane to Galactus.
And
And then
on your
Null gets basically shit on in that sense. It's hard. I'd have to figure out some other builds, but I'm really intrigued of just buffing Galactus. I think the Nimrod way is probably going to be the one people try the most. But I don't know. It's a tricky card, but I think it's in a good place. It's still one thing that I think is awesome with the Galactus change in favor of the Galactus players.
Yeah.
If you were playing Galactus in the past and someone stops your Galactus, 9 times out of 10, you're probably leaving, right?
Yep.
Whereas now, if I wave on 3, Galactus on 4, and I don't win that battle, and I don't get him to go off, I'm not as inclined to just straight up retreat because the 7 power isn't much to scoff at. If you think about it from a mana perspective, it's a 4/7 at that point, which, when people thought that's what High Evolutionary was going to be, that's a pretty decent and pretty good stat line, right? Even a 5/7, that's Nick Fury. So I think you can still stay in games that you normally would have retreated and actually utilize the lanes that Galactus is occupying already with that 7 power and try to just win in a classic manner. And I think that's not outside the realm of possibility with Galactus now.
Yeah, I can't wait to see where the Theory Crafting takes the Galactus because it was the most popular meta deck based on some metrics. So there's definitely people who are going to be trying for it. My chat was constantly yelling like, you got to bring in Claw now. And I'm like, no, Claw sounds like too much of a meme.
Yeah,
but I really like the Goblin.
Extra. Too much work.
Yeah, it is for sure. It's like, that's like a backup plan. But then you're playing turn 5 Galactus. You set up Claw to be able to help him activate, and now you kill your own Claw. So if you weren't winning the lane based on the Galactus 7 and then suddenly you lose the helping hand of the Claw, what are you doing? You have to have a killer null and a killer death or something, but
yeah, which Claw's theoretically a 5/10, right? So you're basically just saying that 5/10 was a waste.
Yes.
Like,
and
you
then
got your
only
Galactus
4
go
is
off,
represented on null.
Yeah, exactly. So you're basically leaving 6 power on the table there. So I'm not a big fan of the Claw thing, and that's too cute. It
just sounds worse than Goblin, right?
I agree.
Goblin's gonna stick.
Because there's still going to be games where you're playing Galactus and you're like, can you stop the goblins? No.
Yeah.
And then I'm probably going to win. Especially if you goblin and then like even something that's just like Green Goblin on 3, Shuri on 4, Nimrod on 5, or even I guess you can't, sucks that you can't Shuri and then Hobgoblin anymore. I guess you could do the Iron Fist thing or whatever. But Nimrod on 5 and then Galactus, like that could very well be enough. But yeah, I'm excited. I like the change a lot, and I'm more happy to try and experiment with some other decks in the meantime because I played Galactus from 63 to Infinite this season in like 4 hours. So I'm kind of a little tuckered out on Galactus.
Yeah.
So the other changes they brought to us are Maria Hill. That's an easy one. She's still a 2/3, still the same stat line. The only difference is on reveal, she adds a 1 or a 2 cost card into your hand randomly. And I'm a little bummed that it wasn't both, kind of like Coulson. I understand that it might be too good and probably is likely too good, right? But
maybe
she does give the extra flexibility of like, there are times where I'm playing like a randomized shield type of deck with like Collector, Devil Dino, and I'm like, I kind of want like an armor here or like something a bit beefier than the 1 cost. And of course, Quinjet actually can benefit off of Maria Hill half the time now, as opposed to just being full cost. But have you tried anything with Maria Hill? Are you even excited about this one at all? Or is it just more so like, feels like more of a quality of life change?
Yeah, it feels like a quality of life change because she was just so forgotten amongst the other agents. I was actually playing my Good Cards Dino deck on Conquest, and I still am not taking her. I'm just running Agent 13 instead, and then I have the Hawk backup package to be able to score more points.
Yep.
I do wish that it was a little bit less RNG, that they just dedicated her to maybe be the 2-cost generator, or maybe had let her do both and then take her base power down. They gave a little bit back to collector, so, these cards that generate a lot of other cards are fun to be able to play in conjunction with collector. You just take a little bit off their body and then give people a little bit more consistency. I love the X factor, something that the opponent can't expect because you don't even expect it. It's just generated. So we'll see if Mariel comes around. I mean, she's got one of the cutest variants in the game, so
which is going to be available for
new
players, which people were upset about that bundle, right? The the her eating a cheeseburger one.
Yeah.
That one, that art throws me off because it's so different from what I think of when it comes to Maria Hill in general. It just feels like such a completely different style, completely different like attitude and stuff like that from what I'm accustomed to. So like it feels like the artist originally was like tasked to do this for like a different card, and then they're like, no, we need one for Maria Hill, and he's like, fuck it, I'm gonna just do it anyway. So what I want to give.
It feels like the developers want a foodie line. You have Taco Hulk and then you have Burger Hill, but that's it. They didn't go all the way in.
You have Chimichanga, Deadpool.
Oh, you're right. Mm-hmm. You have Chimichanga. Okay, there we go. So maybe they're going to flesh it out later on. Yeah, we get Grilling Coulson, but he's part of the summer vacation package. I'm kind of expecting a variant rush coming up soon, but we'll see when that actually comes around.
About to die. Do you count Kingpins?
No.
One of these, like holding like a margarita tropical drink. Is that food
really
related? Does that count?
I don't. Can they? Maybe it's not a margarita. I don't know. What is the game rated? I think we have to call that one like a apple juice martini or something.
Like the like the anime they used to show like on PBS Kids. Like they had Yu-Gi-Oh and stuff like that on Saturday mornings. What's his name? Bandit Pete didn't have a gun in his hand. He just was pointing at Pegasus.
He just points at him. League of Legends, the classic. Graves can't have his cigar.
Yeah. So the other change, of course, that we had was Dazzler. And
this one's big.
I think so, too. So before, Dazzler was a 4/4 that had ongoing +6 if every other lane is filled, right? So you get a 4/10 which, by the way, her data mine version was +8. Should have been a 4/12. So I was pretty disappointed when that came out and it was dropped down.
Her stat line basically translated to you cry if you open this in a cache and then you leave it on the shelf and never play it.
Exactly. The juice wasn't worth the squeeze, basically, right? But now she's a 3/2 and gets +2 for each lane on your side that's filled. So you have a way to just climb in terms of her power adjustment, her scaling. You don't have to go all in on everything because, in a lot of decks, it's not even just things about like specific decks or archetypes. A lot of decks in general in this game can fill up 1 or 2 lanes pretty efficiently, right? So her getting up to a 3/6 is not as hard as you would think. I kind of like the idea of her. I know this is a weird one, but what do you think about her in like a destroyer shell? Or because you want to just fill up 2 lanes anyway, right?
So then you get shell.
Yeah.
What?
And she's ongoing.
What are we cooking? I thought you were going to say Surfer.
Oh, no. Surfer's the easy choice. Yeah, you just Storm, Brood, and then like stack your second lane with a bunch of stuff and Surfer off to the left or whatever, right?
Exactly.
And then that does that. But come on, stay
great.
with me. Destroyer, right?
Yeah,
You just play her. Okay, hold on. In a full stacked lane, we got to figure out the math. Because is she more if you fill up 2 lanes, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is she more than Captain America?
No,
it's the same.
Yeah,
they're both 3/6.
Yeah.
It's a lateral move. Ugh.
I don't know about this one.
I was thinking it might be worth maybe 1 more than Captain America in terms of like the overall stats. But it is a lateral move, unfortunately.
It does get better if you are amplifying it in any way. If you have the onslaught to be able to double her, she's going to give you more than what Captain America is going to be able to do. So with her ongoing suite of synergies, I could see a good future for this one. I could see her getting plugged into just Ultron Patriot, which right now is doing pretty dang well. Even though she's not going to be the recipient of any of the Patriot side of the buffs, being able to see the boards getting filled up very quickly is something she's going to love. And with that deck running not just the Ultron, but also having like Squirrel Girl and Debris in there, they're going to be filling up that board very quickly. You could even run the Mysterio if your game plan is to really attack the board space, and then you've got the beneficiary here in the Dazzler. In fact, could that deck be running Surfer? Because you have
I was about to
Patriot,
just bring that
Mystique,
up.
Debris, Dazzler.
And then, because I've played in the past, I really liked the old Patriot Surfer build that played Cyclops and Brood and stuff. So, like, you could still do Brood, Cyclops, Debris, and then throw in Dazzler, and then throw in Surfer, and then you can still just go with, like, you have your backup of, like, you know, Ultron. The only thing that makes me a little hesitant with that is it's going to have a higher skill ceiling, which is a good thing. But for the average player, people find it really easy to just go with, like, oh, I'm going to play Surfer on turn 6, right? So that I get my most value. Same with Hitmonkey, right? People think Hitmonkey needs to be played always on turn 6. Make him really big. I want that 12 power Hitmonkey. But what differentiates a good player and a great player are the ones that can identify the lines in games to where they're like, I need to play Hitmonkey on turn 5 or even turn 4 sometimes, right? Just to get the power and make sure I'm getting the value out of, like, my energy. Same thing I think would be said in this potential Patriot Surfer list, where you got to be able to just balance, like, I need to play Surfer on 4 or 5. Like, just, I got Dazzler out, I got Brood out already. I just need to like get that out, and then I want to be able to go into my backup of Ultron in my hand on turn 6 to really get Dazzler going, because that difference in the extra +2 that she would have gotten, or that she gets from the full lane, makes up for the +2 you lost on a potential other third or 3 drop that Surfer could have given you, right?
Sure.
So I think that's a very interesting thing to look at. But I think it's also why that deck's not going to go anywhere.
Ooh. We'll see.
Well, look at Thanos.
Yeah.
I still think Thanos is a very good deck, but it's much harder now. The skill ceiling has gone up, and the errors that you can make in that deck are a lot more punishing. So people don't play it as much. I think a lot of the average player is going to gravitate. Even the average player that gets to infinite will gravitate to more. I don't want to say simplistic, but more linear style. Like, I know my game plan kind of decks. That's why we had Shuri at the rate that she was when she was in her height, right?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a little. I want to play the Patriot deck, but I feel like it. You know, Snap Zone's going to be like, it's not even on the list. It's not even on the tier. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
I love the idea of what Bast could do for that list with like the Iron Man, and then all these 3/2s that could then become 3/3s, and even the extra efficiency of Brood getting picked up. I think there's some spice there, but yeah, at the end of the day, like, the majority of the Snap audience is playing while distracted at work or on the toilet or what have you, and they want to play something that they can just grind the game out very quickly without too much
maybe
debating back and forth, right?
Yeah, but maybe this is a good Conquest deck. Because I think that's the avenue in that sector of Snap that we're going to have higher, skill ceiling decks be a bit more prevalent, because I don't think the average player is going to be playing Conquest. I think a lot of people are seeing it right now. A lot of, like, Hearthstone streamers got sponsored to play the deck, or not the deck, I'm sorry, the mode. Snap is really pushing the marketing on this as far as all their stuff online.
They saw last weekend when every single streamer was playing Dual Force, and they're like, well, we got to have something to answer back.
Yeah. Did you enjoy Dual Force, by the way?
So much.
So how do you feel? How do you feel about that? I guess this is going to be a very quick aside.
Yeah.
Both Teddy and I were a part of the streamer beta thing that Dual Force had. I did not stream it personally. I didn't have time in my schedule to do so and dedicate that space. But I had enough time to actually play for maybe a total of like 6 hours across the weekend.
That's pretty good.
So I was able to put in half the time, but it was like inconsistent. It was like I played a few games, went and did something else, come back, played a few games. So it would not have worked for a streaming perspective. But I like the game. I think it's, if you go into it thinking it's going to be like Snap, it's not.
No,
at all.
It's not a Snap clone at all.
No. I will say, though, it feels dated. Does that make sense? Like, it feels like it maybe was a game that could have come out a couple years ago. It just feels like I like it, but it just doesn't have that itch to me. I don't
Gotcha.
sit down and play it and then I'm like having withdrawal afterwards. I'm like I need to play it again. I'm just kind of like I can take it or leave it. But I don't think that makes it a bad game. It just
Yeah.
might be me. But it feels like it feels too much of a middle ground. Like I want
Mm.
the complexity to be more towards like the Magic side of things when I want that in my game, or I want them to be a bit more towards the Snap side of things. Not to say the Snap can't be complex, but it's
Yeah.
very much smack dab in the middle, so it doesn't scratch the itch. And then of course it doesn't do anything spectacular from a visual standpoint like Snap does. So I guess it doesn't make my monkey brain go ooh pretty lights. So I don't know.
Aw.
So
I was
what did-
loving it. I like the board with like the comic side panels on the side in terms of visuals.
Mhm.
I just wish that they would like. I think there's so much more they can do with like brightening up colors, basically, and like
Yeah.
the early access version that we saw, I think, is a work in progress. There were some cards I looked at that looked amazing, that had popping visuals and like strobing light effects, and it's like this is done. And then I saw one that was like just basically they snipped out a comic page and they pasted
Yeah.
this old art on it, and I'm like, that has to be work in progress because I've seen what you can do with other cards. So I'm optimistic on the art side. The side panels you can also scroll. It was like I
Mhm.
was 8 hours in before I realized I could even scroll those to like basically customize my board experience, which I love. And in terms of having game modes, we were talking a little bit about I guess before when we were talking about like what we'd like to see come to Snap. It's going to be releasing with unranked, ranked, PvE. It's going to have battles versus AI to be able to test stuff out. And they say that draft is coming very soon, either with release or shortly thereafter. So it's like got the full complement. You have a friends list that it's going to be releasing with. It's like Snap could never. It has a battle log up on the side.
Yeah.
There's all these things that I love. And I actually really got hooked on their, in terms of gameplay, the currency system of metals. You start with bronze, they upgrade into silver, into gold. And the conversion downside is like you can spend 1 gold for 1 bronze card, not multiple bronze cards. So rather than Snap, where you have this ever increasing number of combos you can pull off, you're still thinking like, okay, I have 2 cards. Do I need to downgrade my silver, my gold into a silver just because the situation calls for it, or do I throw down my gold and board tempo, et cetera, et cetera? So I'm pretty optimistic. I actually was hooked. Like once I stopped streaming, I would like decompress for a little bit, and then about 2 hours later in the evening, I was like, can I log in? I would actually just pull it up and see if they let the servers open, and it was always closed. But like, I'm ready
Yeah.
to go back. I had a great time with it. I'm looking forward to it. I think,
It has
yeah, like,
potential.
yeah, for sure, it has great potential. It seems like the team understands where they want to be with it, and in terms of like competition with Snap and appealing there, if you joined Snap from other card games, I think you're going to immediately find a lot of familiarity at DC Dual Force and actually
Yeah, I
like
agree.
its breadth of game modes and some of the other features that you just expect in card games. But if you came to Snap as your first collectible card game, DC Dual Force is going to be very foreign. You can still pick it up for sure. Like I encourage you to try it, but it's not going to be an immediate translation of like, oh, I'm going to pick this up immediately.
Yeah, and if you want to try it, I'm doing a really large giveaway thing in my Discord this
Yep,
Friday.
yep.
I have a bunch of codes left over. I did a big Twitter giveaway, and then after I finished that, they're like, "Hey, we're giving creators more codes. Who wants
Yep.
some?" And I'm like, "I'll do it." So we'll have a link in the description. Are you doing any more giveaways for beta codes at all, or have you
Yep,
already
up
done
on, I've
yours?
got a standing order of like 150 that are still available on my Discord. So if you guys are looking for the scene, we'll be able to hook you up.
So we will have both of our Discords down below, and then we'll do
Awesome.
the giveaway and stuff like that, and that will be really fun. Yeah, I hope for both Snap's sake and DC's sake, right? I want the game to be successful and be really well received, because although it's not a Snap clone, right? But it is still competition in enough of
yeah.
a way because it's
Yeah.
DC versus Marvel. It's in that card game space where there will be some players that maybe leave Snap to go play that, or like split their time up or whatever, and that is good for the game, for both games.
Yeah.
Because maybe DC will look at things that Snap's doing and maybe up their visual aspect, like you were saying. Some cards maybe don't have enough life injected into them yet, so they might up their art department quite a bit, put a bit more budget into that. Snap might look at DC and be like, we really need more modes. Conquest has been really well received, which we'll talk about in just a moment, and like we'll up some different things. One example I can give: if anyone here has ever played Madden, you know how bad the new ones have been every year for the last decade. Do you know why they're bad? Because they're exclusive in terms of the rights and the licensing to the NFL. back in 2005 when they came out with 2K, the ESPN version of like a football game.
Yeah.
It was and still is considered one of the best football games ever made. Instantaneously, EA was like, "Oh my God, we can't have competition. NFL, can we buy the exclusive rights for the next 30 years?" And they're like, "Yeah." So
how did EA get away with that? They had Star Wars just languishing. They had football just languishing. It's criminal.
Okay, I would say, in defense of EA, which I don't do often, right? Because EA is constantly touted as one of the worst companies in existence.
About to drop 50% of your Twitter subs. Maybe.
I know. So EA, in terms of games like action-centered games, like a lot of the Star Wars games, even Battlefront, stuff like that, a lot of their non-sports stuff actually does pretty well in terms of like the overall gameplay, the design. Yes, there is an issue of like games being broken upon release, but unfortunately that's kind of become the norm with crunch and stuff like that. Like if I could show you a thread of all of the Twitter accounts from different companies being like, "We're sorry it went this way," it's just a big old block of text in a picture. So EA does a fairly good job with stuff like that, and I think a lot of their Star Wars stuff is pretty interesting. The newest one that they just showcased, that's coming out, right? I don't think they developed. Yeah, I don't think they developed it. They were just the publisher. I don't remember who the developer was, but either way, they do an okay job with stuff like that. It's just their sports games that suck. But in NHL is okay, but like, it could be worse. But anyway, Conquest Mode is also part of the new patch today, which is essentially taking Battle Mode that we knew prior, but making it so that it's accessible for all players of Marvel Snap. So if I were to go in and play Conquest Mode, I could maybe pair up against Teddy here and randomly stumble into each other and be like, okay, we're going to battle it out and try to climb up the tiers. How do the tiers
because
work,
it is
Teddy?
Understood to be global matchmaking, right? And my understanding is also that it is not collection level based. League and win rate.
I have the actual message from Glenn because he released one and then released another one. So initially, someone asked, and they asked the team, said, "Is there going to be a pool restriction for Conquest Mode?" And they say they're in pool 2. Just curious. Glenn replies, "No, Conquest is a mode for players seeking to challenge themselves, and its primary matchmaking considerations are all related to the player's current Conquest performance." He follows it up by editing it and saying, "My response above was inaccurate, owing to my unfamiliarity with the most recent spec. The earlier Conquests have some banding around the collection scores of the player. Proving Grounds mirrors the ranked play experience, while Silver and Gold are less discerning. However, Infinite has absolutely no collection bans whatsoever." So the Explain Me Like I'm 5 thing of that is essentially Proving Grounds will be just like Ranked. It's going to try to match you up with someone that has a similar collection level, stuff like that. That is Proving Grounds. When you get into Silver, it's going to hold on to that a little bit, but allow you to open up the percentages, to bring down the time and the restriction. Gold is going to do that even more so, and then Infinite is going to eliminate it altogether. Collection level doesn't matter. You get into whatever game you get into. Yeah. So if you are a Pool 2 player, you want to play Conquest, good luck. Play Devil Dino only.
Yes. Like, as a word of encouragement to people with smaller collection levels, we had recently Fiona Shade Stories pilot a 1,500 collection level account to second place up against the biggest content creators in the game. Like, she was battling up against Freddy Babes at the end and got runner-up. So, like, it's completely possible for you to be able to run the gauntlet. You have to be very smart in the cards that you're targeting for your free Series 3 and be intelligent with your deck selection, but definitely go and battle it out. And the rewards are certainly worth it. Also, the gameplay is just incredibly fun.
The gameplay is, I think, the most important aspect of it. It feels very good because my biggest complaint about Marvel Snap in its current form outside of Conquest is that the singleton aspect of the game and the laddering aspect of the game are very limiting and also kind of feed into the reason why players are so vehement against certain cards like Galactus and things like that, because the singleton aspect of a game, as well as the single match aspect of the game mode is very reflective of that when you have something that's very pulverizing like a Galactus that needs to have specific counters.
Yeah.
It's a coin
Oh,
flip.
it feels so bad because like, oh, you're loading to ranked. They snapped based on your hand, their hand. You didn't even see what kind of deck they were. You accept. Suddenly they show Galactus. You don't have the counter.
Yep.
You're down so many ranks, and you want to close.
Exactly. Where on the contrast to that, Conquest allows you to actually play out your games. And yes, you might have that RNG aspect of, come into play early on and you lose, but that doesn't mean you've lost the entire match. You can still keep going. And as you get more familiar with your opponent's play style, the deck that they're playing, and the overall lines that you think they're going to go with in conjunction with how yours line up against theirs, it gives you a much better idea of how to play. And it actually is reflective more so of who the better player is between the two rather than just who has the better matchup in terms of deck. However, I will say that still comes up quite a bit, right? The matchup aspect of it.
Yes.
Prior to us recording, I did say, please give us a sideboard mode. I was talking about this with Teddy, and I know that's, it's the first day of Conquest. I shouldn't be complaining. I should be thankful that we have a new mode, but I do want eventually extra flexibility in terms of what players can do to counteract each other's decks, because that I want to showcase who the better player is in the most possible ways that I can, as opposed to just letting it just be like, look, I'm playing a destroy deck and they're main decking armor and Cosmo. That sucks for me, right? Like that's going to be a really tough, match in terms of Conquest. But overall, the mode is incredible. It is so much fun.
I think it's very well put together in terms of matching you up for high-level competition. The battle mode idea was great, and it's a tragedy that their data shows the majority of players have not played it. I would always end my streams by doing a battle mode match against one of the viewers as like a raffle giveaway. Great way to be able to connect with the community. I would lose like 100 viewers because I'm not playing ranked anymore. It's like people don't care about watching, and then I'd have people write in chat, what is the health bar under your name? And I'm like, oh no, you like haven't even seen this. This is like a whole nother aspect of Snap, and it really lets the bluffing aspect and the simultaneous reveal shine so much better than in ranked. In ranked, I actively discourage anybody from bluffing, and it just feels like, and the ladder mode is just like, you have it. If they snap, believe them. Retreat. That's the best thing to do.
I agree. Yeah.
In battle mode, you can get into their head. That 1v1 poker situation it's gold. You're going to make so many great memories of like staring them down and then triumphing as you bluffed and you pulled it through to be able to make it into Gold League. Like that's amazing.
And the great thing about Conquest is it allows lesser, seen cards in the ladder to shine, because
100%.
It is such a different aspect of like, that one tech card. We talked about Ghost prior to recording as an example, right? Ghost is not seen hardly at all in the ladder because, unfortunately, in the way it works as a singleton one, like best of one game mode, these type of cards are not as impactful. But in contrast to when you're playing up to 6 or 7 total games in a single match in Conquest mode, these tech cards can make the difference between an 8-cuber and not, like in terms of your favor, right? Which are incredibly valuable. I really don't recommend sticking out 8-cubers very often in Conquest unless you're really, really sure of like your own hand and like what you're going to be doing.
Yes.
Because they are very punishing. Now, in Proving Grounds, snap. I think you should just snap immediately and just try to get through as fast as possible. I don't think that should be the match that you drag out to 8 games. However, if it's all about having fun. So if you just want to play and have fun, but I want to ask you,
that being
Teddy,
said, do you like Proving Grounds? I've seen people doing this already. Of like they'll snap turn 1, I'll beat them, and then they'll concede, outright concede.
Yeah, that's happened to me twice.
It's just a ticket feeder into silver. So do we like it? Like, what if you just fed into silver? Yeah.
So it's tough. I think it's probably the correct thing to do on their part, and I think most people's parts in terms of trying to just stack tickets to get into silver and just kind of go through that. Because I think what people were probably doing is rather than play Proving Grounds, go through your silver games and like potentially like lose and go back to Proving Grounds, just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I think they're just going like Proving Grounds, and just snapping aggressively and trying to just get that game over and over again and stack tickets, which, while being the correct thing, it does muddy the waters a little bit of what I want Proving Grounds to be, because I do
Right.
want it to be treated as like an actual nice introduction and like first game for a lot of people into this mode, as
Yeah.
well as being a fairly interesting and fun unranked mode for some people to try out decks, supposedly.
That is fair, that the consequences are low. You can test your deck, you get a couple reps in, and then you could bow out with no consequences to try in a new matchup. So
Yeah.
I can see that. It just becomes the unranked mode that we were promised and then got cut from the roadmap.
Yeah, in favor of a potential AI bot mode
Please.
in the future, because they're
Yeah.
like, most people won't play it, and I'm like, people already don't like playing bots at the time. That's one of the biggest complaints. It's like, why are there bots? Which there was that today. People go into their first game in Proving Grounds, first game in Silver or Gold, and they're like,
Yep.
why is there a bot? Which, for those of you who don't know, your very first game of each respective tier will be against a bot.
Except for
But that's
Infinite.
it.
Yes.
Except for Infinite, yes.
Yep.
Not Infinite, thank you. But otherwise, you're going to play against one bot.
Yes.
Grand total, you're going to be playing against 3 bots.
Yes.
in-
It's
out of
minuscule
all of your
in the grand
games.
scheme of things. It's
Yeah.
kind of nice just to be able to get your feet wet in terms of the medals, the mode, have some
Mhm.
currency to be able to throw down at the shop. But I definitely saw so many comments of people like, why are there bots? They promised no bots. This is a mistake. Like,
Yeah.
I was getting comments of like, this is why I left the game, because they don't communicate. I was like, okay, guys, you're freaking out. It's not that bad.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
there is a tendency to make mountains out of molehills with the Snap community, unfortunately. It was insane because, like, I remember, like, I say I remember as if it was so long ago, but like in the last couple of days, looking at all these people tweet constantly about Galactus, how they're going to leave the game if they don't change him in the next patch, and like all these posts, and I'm just like, relax, like breathe, just for a second. It's not
Yeah.
that bad. After
No,
all,
man,
it is a game, right?
But just like a day in Snap, it's like dog years to other games because you play
Mhm.
so many at a time. The attention span of the Snap community is all condensed, and then seasons being shorter as well, and yeah,
Which
it's,
is why I think Conquest is a good thing for the game in general, and more
Yes.
modes similar to it, because you want to retain attention span. Especially because, like, when you're advertising Snap as a game, because, like, I don't know if you've seen this, like, I've only seen it on Facebook,
Okay.
but the ad I get for Snap on Facebook is, it'll say like 3-minute quick, like, fast-paced games, and like it's advertising that aspect of it. So when you're really leaning into that portion, you're going to get a lot of people that can have lower attention spans for games, that just want to do these quick, fast-paced games. But a way that it does it a double-edged sword, just like you say. You're going to lose the same amount of people because one day in Snap is 7 years for every other game.
That's what it seems like.
Yeah, but Conquest mode and more game modes similar to it are going to help with that attention span, because it forces you to have a bit more of an attention span and be more invested in each decision you make and stuff like that. So I'm really excited for Conquest mode moving forward, and everything they're going to come out after that. I hope we
Yeah.
get a limited mode and stuff like that. I did touch on sleeper picks and like cards that are less seen in regular best of one ladder. We talked about Ghost as an example. Or do you have any that come to your mind initially when you think of cards that you feel like have potential to be very good in Conquest mode, where you don't typically see them almost never or hardly at all in the best of one mode?
Well, my perspective might be a little skewed, but I'm reinterpreting this as cards that are good against High Evolutionary. Because those are basically the only decks that were smacking me when I was up in gold. I haven't won gold yet. I kept losing to High Evo, Lockjaw. So I'm looking at stuff like what Dracula is able to do and what Luke Cage is able to do for you. I do think that Conquest mode means, because of the nature of, like, in ranked, you lose in a bad matchup, you just retreat, go next, if you recognize the bad matchup. In Conquest mode, you have a bad matchup and you're in Gold League, you're demoted down to Proving Grounds if you haven't been stockpiling tickets, or you have to have that mentality around it. So
Yeah.
you want to be able to play decks that are pretty safe, are able to go neutral up against your opponents, or have tech cards that you're specifically bringing to be able to answer, like, I'm playing Bounce and I will die to Wave or what have you, but I'm going to bring this card because if they play the counter card, I'll be able to keep up then. I have this out. the Ghost and Valkyrie seems
Yeah.
like it's pretty good. I'm wondering if Shadow King can get played. I'm waiting for the Surfer 3's Shadow King army to rise. But I don't know. Specifically up against High Evolutionary, it seems like Luke Cage is your answer as just a good tech card. And he's pretty playable in a lot of different situations.
Yeah.
He can
Something
help you
as simple
mitigate a
as the
lot of bad
negative.
location flips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then the Dracula as your answer to High Evo is like brilliant because they play Storm to start locking things down, and your Dracula gets in there and can be your biggest card. Also, if he has his base power debuffed, he just shakes it all off at the end of the game. Dracula is so good against that matchup.
Yeah, Dracula. So that's why I did a video last week, right before the OTA, which I guess we'll talk about that next, on Lockdown, which is one of my favorite decks in the game. And I said, I did a portion of saying, like, these are your bad matchups. I said High Evo was a bad matchup and Discard was a bad matchup, and then Patriot was the third. And I said the reason for those is because High Evo just directly counters what you're doing, because if you storm a location and try to lock it down, they're like, yeah, I play Cyclops and you're just helping me out. And then the other side of it is if you're going against Discard, Dracula is one of the best follow-ups on turn 4 to a stormed location, both High Evo variants and not. So I am curious though, do you think the best way to go about Conquest mode, because I talked about this a couple weeks ago, where I wonder if the best way to play and try to just climb through the ranks really fast or climb through your levels is to play a more, maybe not high variance deck, but a more pulverizing deck when it goes off. Like the High Evo Lockjaw deck. Like, if you just run hot with that deck, it feels unstoppable in a lot of times. But it can also just lose to really dumb stuff because you just don't have good draws. But like that feels like the kind of way to go about it. Like even something like Hela, I feel like could, in like that same vein, could work. Not as consistent as the High Evo deck because it has this failsafe of just playing decent cards as opposed to Hela just being all in on something. But I'm curious if you think that that's the way to attack Conquest mode right now, is playing these more splashy, big, hard to overcome kind of decks where, like, if you have a bad hand or whatever, retreat for 1 cube, but you're very likely to win the games where you pop off and you win a 4 cuber here or like a 2 cuber here, and even if you lose 4 games in your match and you only win 3, you're probably getting more cubes per win versus your losses.
Oh yeah. So I think that you tackle it in 2 different ways. You look at either taking a deck that you're comfortable with, or that is something like the High Evo, the Discard, the Patriot, something that you're able to snap off of your hand state rather than needing too much information from your opponent. So just recognizing I have an advantage, I snap now, that can see you through a lot of, like, you got a bad draw, you just know that you're going to be hovering the retreat button, you have a good draw, you're putting the pressure on immediately. So you can weather a neutral matchup or even necessarily a bad matchup if you have that kind of familiarity with your deck, and your deck has that capability to snap off of, secure that early cube off of just seeing a good hand. Your other thing is to bring X factors that are unique to the battle mode setting, where you have something that's generating cards that your opponent cannot predict, or the Invisible Woman is such a good mind game, which is elevating Patriot and Hela, I think, that are both, like, Patriot and Hela have a lot of oomph to back up that, but then with the Invisible Woman giving you the freedom of bluffing and getting in your opponent's head, that's where it's another good option, I think.
I think I kind of want to go to my next, once I lose, I know you can switch decks, but I like to try and play a singular deck and get more reps in on Conquest as opposed to switching back and forth. Because then it increases the variance that you just run into a random matchup, like the tinfoil hat people say of, like, I switched to this deck and now I'm playing against this deck. They're doing it on purpose. But I do want to try a run with Discard. I feel like Discard is one of the most underrated decks in the game because it's kind of boring. It's not very flashy. It's like, it just does its thing. like whereas like Hela, for example, like it's in the same vein. It's also discard, but it's like when it goes off, it's really really cool. And otherwise, I'm just like I have an 8-power, Morbius and a Dracula that discarded my, my Chavez or whatever. Like it's just wow. So I want to try that one, and I think it would line up nicely against like High Evo and stuff. But so we only have about 15 minutes left. We want to try and keep to an hour, make sure the viewers are consistent in what they expect. Also, let us know, suggestions, what you have for the show in general. We're going to try, we wanted to keep it in the same vein of what we've come to, know and expect when Michael was hosting and what we're going to be doing moving forward. But if you have any suggestions of what you want to see, we're more than open to, listening to feedback and wanting to do things that you guys like. If you want longer episodes, if you want like shorter episodes, things like that. But
great idea. Throw that in there at the 45-minute mark. Only the diehard fans are going to respond to that one.
Oh, I know.
We'll get the true fan responses there.
Well, I can
record
record an intro of some kind and just like throw it up in the beginning, or I can just like splice this part out and put it in the very beginning. Hey,
that works.
Hey, Teddy, what should the viewers do if they want to have any suggestions? Where should they tell us?
They should throw it down in our Discords, in the comments here after you leave a review, and the Twitters. We'd love to hear about it. Honestly, getting a mailbag segment would be fantastic.
I actually already made a mailbag portion of my Discord. I recommend you do the same because that way I can juggle it between different podcasts and like get some questions up in here. But OTAs, last thing we want to talk about. Actually, we'll actually breeze through the OTAs real quick and then talk about Silk. I think is the best way to end on. So OTAs, we have Spider-Man as a 5/4 now. We have God, I'm already blanking on what the OTAs were. I only think of Spider-Man.
You want me to run through them?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So we had Rogue, just a slight touch-up. You're going to forget about her immediately. 3-1 to 3-2. We don't care, right? Medusa, slight touch-up. This is really a glow-up. From her ability is now +3 power when played on mid. So she hits the premium 2/5. For a starter card, this is incredible. The Cerebro 5s rejoice, but I think that's still a meme. The fact that now we have Lizard, Medusa, and Silk all at this 2/5, and then you could like argue Titania is also in the cheap card 5 stat line. It's fun. It's fun.
I tried it, and it's not that I don't think it's as memey as you would think.
Cerebro 5s?
Yeah, so here's my theory behind why I don't think it's as memey. Because it's not as dependent on Cerebro as other decks. Like look at Cerebro 2, for example, right? Or even Cerebro 3. Cerebro 3 has a lot more flexibility with things like Valkyrie and like Bass, stuff like that, to kind of like manipulate your own power and like and help. Like that's why I think that one's probably the best one still. Cerebro 2 is very much all in of like I need Cerebro. If I don't have it, I need a retreat. But while also being a pretty cool deck in its own right. Cerebro 5 is like it's just gravy. And I think what you should do if you're playing Cerebro 5 or trying the deck, and if you do end up getting Silk, you really should treat the deck as like, look, Cerebro's gravy. If I run into a location where it messes up my Cerebro potential, you don't care. You're just trying to be efficient and just play good cards and play like to the board, because 5 power for each card is, not anything to scoff at, and you can win games pretty handedly without Cerebro ever touching the board.
So you're bringing Dr. Doom, Nimrod, Deathlock.
No. So I was
not the Nimrod Deathlock.
No, I didn't do the Nimrod thing. I was doing just a value one. It was like Titania, like the 2 drops you mentioned, like Lizard, Silk, and now Medusa, and then just like things like Enchantress was in there, just as like a nice little tech option to like deal with some like ongoing stuff if you need to. Because while you can generate some decent power yourself, you're not gonna go super crazy in terms of the power you're putting out. Polaris, I think, was really nice. And of course, like you said, Dr. Doom. And then I was even trying, then Star-Lord's in there as well. Because we have Silk in the deck and Polaris, throw in Miles, because you can sometimes get him for 1. And then the last one was, what was it? Wave to ramp into Doom sometimes, so that you have the flexibility to go into multiple things on 6.
Okay. Yeah, because you want to be able to play like Cerebro, Mystique together.
Yeah.
whatever.
And Wave is nice against bounce decks as well, of course.
Yeah.
Gives you a
She's
nice
a win
little flex
condition.
spot. Yeah, because if in
Love
games
it.
where you just put out value, turn 5, you wave, and they just picked up their board, and you're like, I Doctor Doom. Like it feels pretty good.
Oh yeah.
I like the list. I like the list quite a bit. It's pretty fun.
Do you think that's actually a home for Medusa, or are you thinking that Medusa could live in like just Sarah Miracle kind of stuff?
I think people should give Medusa a chance in like regular, more straightforward decks.
I think
the
she's
same
the
way
lizard
with,
killer.
Yeah.
Why do you want to play Lizard when you can play Medusa now, right?
You are limited to the middle lane, right? And it does
Yep.
make you feel like you have to like it's the sunk cost fallacy. Like if you play Medusa mid, you want to be able to like put more things there to try and like
Yes.
maybe go into like a losing battle where they're just doing way better in that middle lane. And sometimes it's gonna be hard for people to let go and just be like, look, I invested the Medusa there. It didn't
Yeah.
work out. I got to go to the other lanes. But yeah, I think she has really solid potential to be a really good card in other decks. I think people should try her more.
I do too. Punisher over here is sad as one of those starter cards that has not gotten love. I'm still waiting for his buff, but seeing the Medusa is giving me hope, and I'm so happy to see it. Now we had Hood debuffed from 1-2 to 1-3. I actually like this. It makes the Viper combo a little bit spicier. It means
Yeah.
that you need to be able to hit your combos on how you deal with the Hood, rather than just playing him and eating the -2 because you know the demon is that powerful, right? So I love this change. It's my favorite card. It's still my favorite card. It's so much fun, and because of the Viper high roll even getting better, I don't even necessarily see it as a direct nerf.
Yeah, I like the card a lot. It's funny you mentioned as your favorite card. I actually use the Hood as my avatar, and I have
Yes.
for like the longest time. It's just
Yes.
fantastic.
I think it's one of the best, most engaging card designs in the game.
I agree. It's a really cool little backstory with his card. I like his character a lot. I think he's really interesting. This is a great month for me though, looking forward, because like my favorite Spider-Man, like Spider-Man's always been my and it's not super uncommon for most people because it's the most popular superhero in the world.
Yeah.
But growing up, he was always my favorite hero. But I always gravitated more towards Miguel. 2099 was always my favorite.
Yeah.
As I got more into like comics and stuff. So seeing him coming out is really exciting. But yeah, I think overall, like if you would give a letter grade to this OTA, and
We got two more. We got Beast. Increased in
yeah.
cost. The hit to bounce made him a 3 cost, but was a very respectful change because they still gave him the +2 power onto his body, maintaining that tempo stat line, but just meaning your combos get tighter. It's I think bounce is still fine. Really, I think it's fine.
I think it's still very good.
Yeah. I always thought that Beast was a card and a half, and the only reason that he wasn't nerfed earlier was because he was never in like a meta-defining deck, and now with Kitty, Bounce got so powerful, they were like, yeah, Beast is a card and a half. He's returning cards, repeating activations, and discounting them? Excuse me? It's crazy what he was able to do as a 2/2. Now, you do have the additional hit if you were running Bast in your Bounce, because before Bast would be buffing Beast, and now she is debuffing Beast. I am still running Bast in my Bounce. I think it's still fine, and I still have some people within my community that are diehard Bounce players that are doing very well, playing tournaments, playing Conquest, etc. So I think that it's just a good change. It's sad to see the free-to-play decks, because Bounce was very free-to-play accessible, especially with how Kitty got developed or deployed, get nerfed when there's other like meta leaders. But I think that Bounce needed to come back. You had been talking earlier about playing a Kitty deck that got Kitty on turn 1 every single game, it felt like, and it does feel very oppressive if you don't have the right control cards. So making it just a little bit harder for them, I think, is a good move. And then the big one, Spider-Man. 4/3 to 5/4, man. I used to say that he was the most underrated card in the game, and then people really started seeing his power, and then he got very overbearing with High Evolutionary. So you say increased in cost. This is like a lot of ripple effects. Basically what the High Evo deck wanted was to play Spider-Man on 5 and then pass that 1 energy, which represented a power from Misty Knight, 2 power from Cyclops, and then it represented 2 power on Hulk. All of that is taken away. So it trimmed a lot off High Evo.
And that's not even counting Sunspot if he's on board.
Yeah. Yep. You do get the 1 more point on Spider-Man. I think it means that the competition is that much stiffer between Spider-Man and Professor X. You're not playing Spider-Man into Professor X anymore. You're choosing one or the other. And it could be a good segue into Silk here, because Silk is a tick on the Professor X side of the board because she can get in behind the Spider-Man webs.
Yeah, so I do think that talking about the Spider-Man thing really quick with Professor X,
Yeah.
I do think
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is actually a lot of merit to playing both if you're playing Daredevil, because
Good point.
I think about Spider-Man, Daredevil, and then Gamora, and like Professor X. Sorry, like that little package of 4 cards. I think that's a
Yep.
very good package for Daredevil. You either have
And
2
probably not too
lockdown.
top heavy, right?
Yeah,
Having
exactly.
5 costs, no 6 costs. I don't think that's too top heavy.
5.
Oh, sorry, 4. 4 5 costs, no 6 costs. I think that's.
I'm thinking
that rounds
3
it out.
because it'd be Spider-Man, Professor X, and just Gamora, and that's it. And then Daredevil's the 2/2, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So it's 4
It's a
total
good
cards.
package. Yeah.
And then like maybe your top end could be like just 1 6-drop being like Doom, right?
Sure,
If you're going
sure.
with like a lockdown play. I do like that flexibility because like you can either just have power attacking the Gamora or 2 options to lock down the lane on turn 5. But yeah, Silk definitely wants you to be playing Spider-Man over Professor X, which is flavorful, I suppose. And what have you thought about Silk so far? I think she's been very cool. I think has a fairly decent learning curve to how she's played. You need to
Yeah.
kind of like finesse your board a little bit. There's
Yeah.
like instances where I need to go like let's say on turn 6 I have her down. I've been playing her in a Darkhawk deck, for example, and let's say my only plays are going to be like Darkhawk for 4, and then I have like enough to play like one other card, so I might play Korg, and she's on the far right. I don't want her to be on the far left at all. I want her to stay in the middle or right lane, so I play Darkhawk on her first, and then Korg over on the far left, just in case she swings over there to basically pull her back to one of the other lanes I want to try and win. I do lose out on the 2 power of Korg, though, to where he could have gone in middle or right in his own right. Yeah, there is some give and pull of Silk. But what have you thought of her so far?
I think she's fine. Like the 2/5 stat line is so premium. She's worth playing around the negative. She's kind of like Titania in that, but she's lower risk than Titania. But Titania has the ability to betray you, go over to the opponent's side of the board. That can be manipulated into a situation that still benefits you. Silk can betray you by then jumping away from the location you needed her to stick to, but she can also jump into a location that you can't get into otherwise. So
Yeah.
I love the flexibility of the card in specific situations. She is really going to shine. I was watching Lambie Series stream a little bit. I might steal his recommendation. Is like Silk is worth the Series 5 asking point, but that's if your Series 5 pool is already very complete, like you already have High Evolutionary,
Yeah.
Thanos, Lad, and Jeff, then you're looking at playing, like, go ahead, grab Silk, by all means.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you might want to hold back and collect some other of these core pieces, especially if the developers are following through on keeping some of these cards in the higher series longer.
Yeah, I only have the only card I'm missing in Series 5 is Tribunal. It's the only one.
Yep. That's a good card to miss. Brad,
Yeah,
it's a very
it's
good
just
card to miss.
unexciting.
As a Tribunal owner, yep.
Yeah, it's just I don't nothing wrong with it. I think it's a cool card. It's just it doesn't tickle my fancy, you know.
And it's not good. There's that too.
Yeah, I think maybe it's it could present some shock aspect of it, like we talked about in the last
shocking
episode.
that somebody's actually dumb enough to play it. I'm sorry, you're not getting any concession on me, Brad. It's
So I do have a question regarding Silk, though.
Yes.
We do see some similarities. Now, of course, there is more of a thing to chance with Silk.
Yep.
But I see some similarities with her and Jeff to some instance.
yeah.
And the potential of getting into those lockdown locations are the ones that are like Sanctum Sanctorum or whatever that you are unable to get into normally. If someone was to come to you and ask, I have, Jeff is one option and Silk's in the featured spotlight or whatever, which one should I go with first? And they already have Thanos, High Evo, they have Iron Lad. What are you gonna say for them to get?
me? So without weekend missions, then I would say it's Jeff. I like Jeff because of you're controlling so much more. You have less power, but you're able to control so much more. Play him directly to the location. You don't have to manipulate any combos. Jeff is standing on his own. Also, in terms of working with the package of Miles, you have complete control over when you're able to get the discount and slide him to the side. You also have some very fun interactions with locations that are going to be able to be like Sinister London, duplicating him, and then you have multiple. The extra control is beautiful. Synergy with Professor X, also beautiful. We're in a sticky place right now with the weekend missions. I don't know how much of a token rebate you're going to get, But it's putting me into kind of a cult of the new mentality of like, go ahead, pick up the new cards from now on as like a tiebreaker. You're torn between two, buy the new one and then get the rebate and get the old one later when it drops down, kind of thing. But
That's
we haven't seen the exact numbers yet. So
yeah, we're
man, it's hard
waiting
to
on
say.
more stuff to come out. The only thing that we've gotten that's part of the acquisition changes that are live and out for everyone is the introduction of the mystery Series 3 card in the shop, which I can, take it or leave it, I suppose. It's nice for people that just want to get just climb through the Series 3 a bit faster if they're not Series 3 complete, at the cost of it being random. It's nowhere near as good as it was prior in the old version of the shop where you just were able to choose what you're getting. But at least it's something for those players. But otherwise, it's just we got to wait and see.
Do you think it's a good idea? I always kind of recommend, I feel like, again, Cult of the New, let Series 3 come as it may, target your freebie every month very carefully, and then buy Series 4. Series 4, it seems like they're cultivating it to be some very powerful cards. You can get Zabu, you can get Hawk, and then just, wait on those extra Series 3. Because I was looking at Series 3, there's some meta-defining cards. There's also Crystal. There's also Quake. There's also all these cards that, you spent your 1,000 tokens, you're going to be able to spend, a big chunk of your currency on that. You could have just opened that into cash.
Yeah. That's, I don't know, because, I also, because I didn't play beta. I came in right at launch, right?
Yeah.
So I also got to utilize the token shop to my advantage to fly through Series 3 faster than I would have prior. But also I have the foresight, or no, I'm sorry, hindsight in the sense, to look back and say there wasn't as many cards in Series 4 or 5 to just get really super I need these cards.
Yeah.
So I guess it worked out better for me in that sense. Now I don't know if it's correct to just fly through Series 3 as fast as you can, because when it comes down to it, the token acquisition rate, as it stands now, we're supposed to be seeing some changes with that moving forward, especially with the weekend missions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as it stands now, the token acquisition kind of sucks for people that are Series 3 complete, because if you or I were to open a card or a cache that says I'm Series 3 complete, and that would have been a Series 3 card, but instead, what do we get? 100 tokens.
100, yeah.
Yeah, it sucks. And hey, I have another question for you. Are you Series 4 complete by any chance?
As of the latest, honestly, I might be. What is dropped? I think I could be.
Snowguard and Stegron dropped?
Yeah,
Snowguard and Stegron.
So here's the thing. I run a main account and I run a free-to-play account, and I specifically target buying the bad cards every month on the free-to-play account. So I don't think I have Snowguard.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I think I did buy Stegron on the main one, though. So Snowguard is so bad.
Prior to her dropping, right, I was Series 4 complete.
And you honestly don't want to be, because that one still has the pity timer, right? That's what you're saying?
It does. And if I were to open a cache that would have theoretically had a Series 4 card when I'm Series 4 complete, you know what I get?
100 tokens.
100 tokens, just like before. Yeah. And I'll take it one step further. This is going to be not applicable to most people, but if you're Series 5 complete, like I almost am, right? I got everything but Tribunal. If I had Tribunal in my collection...
Your 1 in 400 God cash pull is...
100 tokens.
Oh!
That needs to be changed. Absolutely. If there's anything to end the episode on, they should change that to, there should be a bit more reward for, people that, are either either A, putting in all the time and effort that they can to play in the game to grind through it, get more cards, or B, spending a lot of money for the game to get their cards, or a combination of both.
Improve the whale experience, right? But if you're looking at the most competitive Dolphin or free-to-play experience, you probably don't want to be Series 3 or Series 4 complete at any stage. That way you're getting, every time you open a cache, you feel like you are adding more progression than if you had actually closed the gap and fully finished out either of those pools.
Which sucks for us, because as content creators, we're inclined to not leave any cards on the table. So.
Yep, exactly.
All right, before we go, Teddy, where can the wonderful people find you if they want to hear more of your wonderful opinions and all that good stuff?
Yeah, I stream on YouTube and Twitch Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I've got the Teddy Ninja YouTube channels where most of the community is, and I've got a Discord if you want to be able to hang out at any time. I'm going to be doing Dual Force this weekend, and then got a lot more Snap Conquest during the week, and more content, deck guides and whatnot going up as well.
All right. And you can find me pretty much everywhere at Bradzifer here on YouTube, as well as on Twitter. And of course, just like Teddy, I have a Discord as well. Link down in the description for both of us. And I think that's going to do it for us. This has been a cool, it's our first episode taking over the show. I'm excited moving forward. And
very excited.
I got nothing else to add. You guys are great. We love the support. We love the, hope to carry the mantle and continue the show for as long as we possibly can. And we can't wait to have Michael back on. So that's going to do it for us, and we hope to have you listen to us next week. See ya.
See ya.